Rockstar are in a very controversial spot here after firing over 30 people, 34 to be exact, over some messages in Discord. And these people were union members, and they are not happy about it. Now, why did this even happen? What were the messages that caused such a massive step? Who was at fault here? We will be taking a look at all of that in this video, so hit the subscribe button and let's get started. At the end of October, Rockstar dismissed 34 employees across its Edinburgh, Dundee, Lincoln, and Toronto offices, stating they had committed gross misconduct by sharing internal information inside a Discord server that included people outside the company. Which was pretty odd because the Discord server they were talking about was a very old channel, and it was not a leaked channel but an invite-only channel that the union members of the company were using from the very start. There, they discussed paid bonuses, workload issues, and, in the days before the firings, changes to Slack channels and a new internal status policy. Rockstar had already dismissed all Slack channels that were not related to the company, so channels like gaming, movies, and other channels all got deleted, and people there felt like this was completely unnecessary. Now they had to talk about those things on the Discord server that was already set up. Someone who had access forwarded those messages to management, and that single act sparked an internal investigation. Within days, one office after another saw employees called into meetings and exited without warning. Many of those affected were linked to IWGB, a union representing game workers in the UK, which immediately argued that the dismissals had nothing to do with confidentiality and everything to do with union activity. They filed legal claims alleging unfair dismissal, victimization, and retaliation, while Rockstar firmly denied any union connection and maintained that the issue was purely about policy violations. Outside the studios, the situation echoed outward. Protests formed at Rockstar and Take-Two offices. The story reached MPs, and players and developers across the industry began questioning what had actually happened inside those Discord messages. Meanwhile, the personal impact landed hard on the people who had lost their jobs. Several faced sudden visa risks, others were preparing for life changes like paternity leave or relying on income that disappeared overnight. And all of them were now marked with a misconduct label that could follow them through an industry where reputation isn't just a detail, it's currency. By early November, the entire conflict rested on a single unresolved split. Were those Discord conversations a leak of confidential information, as Rockstar claimed, or ordinary protected workplace discussion as the workers insisted? That unanswered question is the hinge the whole story turns on, and everything that follows depends on which side of it proves true. Let's talk about the Discord server that started all of this. The server at the center of this entire story wasn't some secret leak hub that suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It had been around since roughly 2022, created as an invite-only space for Rockstar employees who wanted somewhere safe to talk about work without the noise of public forums. Access wasn't open to fans or random outsiders. You had to be a verified employee or someone directly involved in organizing with IWGB to even get in. Over time, it grew. And although reports mentioned that hundreds of people were technically part of it, the culture inside stayed the same. A worker-first server where people compared notes on pay, bonuses, stressful workloads, and changes in the studio that didn't always make sense. The structure of the server reflected that. There were normal chat channels, and then there were sections used by employees who were organizing or just trying to keep track of workplace issues that had nowhere else to live. Because inside Rockstar, all those casual Slack channels, gaming, movies, anything not work-related, had been removed. That purge pushed employees to rely more heavily on the Discord server because there simply wasn't any other internal place where people could talk about non-production topics or raise concerns that weren't strictly tied to tasks. And so when Rockstar suddenly deleted those Slack spaces and followed it up with a new status policy email which restricted employees to use their emails only during work hours, people did exactly what they'd always done. They posted screenshots in the server and talked about how the changes would affect them. Those conversations were normal, low-stakes workplace chatter, but they documented what was happening inside the studio, and that turned out to matter. Someone with access to the Discord grabbed those messages and forwarded them to management. That single action turned this old employee-only server into the key piece of evidence Rockstar used. The chain was simple. Slack channels removed, employees shift their conversations to the Discord server, screenshots get posted, someone reports them, and suddenly a private organizing space that had existed quietly for years becomes the focal point of a misconduct case. It was never designed to leak confidential material, never meant to broadcast internal documents to outsiders. It was a fallback, a place where workers kept talking after their internal channels disappeared, and the posts that ended up under scrutiny were the same kind of workplace discussions employees had been having there since the beginning. The conversations happening inside the Discord server were the same kinds of discussions employees had been having for years, and they only became more active after everything we already talked about, the Slack channels being removed and the internal status policy email going out, which, by the way, Rockstar said that the channels were removed because it was hindering the productivity of the employees. People suddenly had nowhere inside the company to talk about non-production topics or even basic workplace concerns, so the Discord naturally became the only place left where everyone could still compare notes. And because some employees were off shift or didn't get the policy email on time or simply couldn't access it, others shared the screenshots there so everyone stayed informed about what was changing inside the studio. The discussions that followed weren't leaks of game material or anything close to it. Looking at what IWGB has shared, they were about pay, bonuses, workloads, how the policy changes were affecting them, and how employees wanted to organize around those issues with IWGB. The server had always been structured for that. Normal chat channels, and then the organizing sections where verified staff and union reps kept track of ongoing concerns. None of this was new. It was the same rhythm of workplace conversation that had been happening in that server since the day it was created. But because the Slack purge forced everyone to move their everyday discussions there, and because the screenshots of policy changes were posted so people wouldn't be left in the dark, the Discord accidentally became the record of all the internal frustration building up in the studio. In the UK, talking about pay, working conditions, and union matters is legally protected. Workers are allowed to have those conversations even in private online spaces, and employers cannot punish employees simply for discussing wages or workplace policies. Multiple reports also clarify that the topics being discussed were labor-related, not technical game details or unreleased project information. But someone with access to the server forwarded those Discord messages to management. That is what turned the Discord into evidence. Rockstar later reviewed those messages and cited them as part of the misconduct case. The content itself, according to reporting and union statements, was focused on pay, workplace concerns, and union organizing, which are legally protected subjects in the UK. That review happened quickly. Within days, employees across multiple offices were contacted about the investigation, and management began holding meetings with the individuals whose Discord messages had been included in the forwarded material. Those meetings led directly to the dismissals. After the dismissals, the response didn't stay inside Rockstar for long. IWGB, the union representing many of the fired UK employees, immediately filed legal claims against Rockstar and Take-Two, arguing that the terminations amounted to unfair dismissal, victimization, and retaliation linked directly to union activity. Their position was simple. Every UK employee who was fired had been part of the union organizing Discord channels, and the conversations in those channels were about pay, working conditions, and labor issues that are legally protected subjects under UK law. Rockstar publicly denied that, saying the firings had nothing to do with union involvement and were solely about sharing internal information in a space they considered a public forum. While those two explanations clashed, the fallout moved quickly. Protests began forming outside Rockstar and Take-Two offices, especially in London and Edinburgh, where former employees, union organizers, and supporters showed up with signs calling the mass dismissals an attack on worker rights and demanding reinstatement. The story began spreading across the industry, drawing attention from developers, labor groups, and even members of parliament who raised questions about what exactly had happened behind the scenes. For the people who had been fired, the consequences were immediate and serious. Some were on company-sponsored visas, meaning the termination put their immigration status at risk. Others lost access to benefits and financial plans they were counting on, including people preparing for major life events like paternity leave. And because many of them had been working on Grand Theft Auto 5, being terminated before the game's release meant potentially losing out on bonuses and credits, both of which are extremely important for long-term career prospects in game development. Inside the remaining studios, employees described a noticeable shift in atmosphere. more caution, less openness, and a sense that normal conversations about workplace issues now carried more risk than before. All of this unfolded within days of the investigation, and the legal claims, protests, personal consequences, and industry reaction formed the entire second wave of the story, running parallel to Rockstar's repeated statement that the firings were strictly misconduct-related and had nothing to do with union activity. I do hope that whatever Rockstar saw in those messages were good to be claimed as leaks, because the lawsuit is going to hit hard. I can understand the growing tension because Rockstar has had a few very major leaks. Twitter or X was littered with the previous gameplay leaks when it came out, causing Rockstar to panic and remove those videos immediately. I have never seen someone getting caught so fast for a leak. Regardless, the employees were wrongfully terminated as far as I can see with the little information I have. If more comes out, maybe we could see it from the perspective of the studio. What do you think about this one? Let me know in the comments down below.